All right, welcome to another episode of Real Talk with a Vulnerable Angel and Friends. I am your host, the Vulnerable Angel, Dominica May, although I am wearing a maid outfit today just because for fun. My guest today is Sharad. Mike is not able to join us, so it'll just be me and Sharad tonight.
What's up?
Hi, Sharad. Our topic for tonight is toxic positivity versus real support.
Mm-hmm.
And if this is your first time joining us for this live stream show, what we do is we just answer some questions and we talk vulnerably from our personal lives and our own experiences, generally about things that people tend not to talk about very often, let alone publicly. So, yeah, that's what we're gonna do.
Awesome.
I'm excited. If anyone is curious about the full look of the maid outfit, I did post some pictures to Instagram earlier today, so you can always check out my Instagram link and the link. The link is in the comments. Look, I'm trying to build an audience.
You know what you're doing. You know what you're doing.
Why do I get attention? No, it's also just for fun. I like dressing up.
Get that bag.
All right, let's get started with our and also you're welcome to ask any questions in the chat or in the comment section if you are watching after the stream, because we do love answering questions for you as well. All right, our first question, actually all of our questions tonight do come from ChatGPT. And our first question is, what's the difference between optimism and toxic positivity?
Well, starting us off strong. Okay.
This is the order that ChatGPT gave me the questions. Sometimes I adjust them, but this makes sense.
What is it? What do you think the difference is to you?
For me, I would say optimism is like looking on the bright side, but still being aware of things that can go wrong. Whereas toxic positivity is like you must be happy or else. Like it feels like you're. I guess you kind of feel more guilt and shame if you're not able to be positive.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I would say is a brief rundown.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think for me, I think you hit the nail on the head. That obviously with optimism, it definitely lies in realism. You understand and you recognize what the situation is, and you're going into it with the best hopes and intentions. Toxic positivity is just living in la la land, pretty much.
Yes.
As much as it would be. One example of toxic positivity for me is if you see someone in a wheelchair, for example, and off top of my head, let's just say they've had a very traumatic spinal injury, they'll probably never walk again. Toxic positivity could just be like, hey bro, you keep at it in the gym, you keep smiling, you'll be on your feet in no time. See you next week.
Yeah, it's like expecting results that are impossible.
So
yeah, I mean, there's no harm in like looking for potential positive outcomes, but if it delves into that really impossible kind of realm, it's like no, let's be a little bit more realistic.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, for me, I this kind of stems a lot from people who look at the disabled community, for example, right? They're like, but it works both ways. One could be like, oh my God, you're so strong, you're amazing, and these people are just like, dude, I'm just trying to live,
Yeah.
Another thing could be, and this happened. This actually happened to me. I was on the LRT here in Malaysia, and I was wheelchair bound at the time, and I was trying to get into the LRT, and without even asking, people would just grab my wheelchair and assist me into, which is very nice. But I'm
Yeah.
just like, dude, at least like give me a heads
Ask
up.
first. Yeah.
Yeah, just I'm just like so so
How do
yeah.
you know? How do you know if this is my train?
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, this isn't where I parked my car, and and it's twofold. But that being said, though, like I think toxic positivity comes from a good place. It's just usually misguided.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Do you have you in your own life leaned towards toxic positivity at all, like during any periods of life, or have you leaned more optimism, or like like even neither in some cases?
I don't know. I think for me, as I mentioned earlier, a cautious kind of optimism is always healthy. I don't think that would hurt anyone. As the saying, always look on the bright side of life. So, uh, there's optimism even in the darkest of places, and I think it's good to leave yourself open to that. But again, like in terms of the toxic positivity, that's also there, and so it can be very very tricky. So I do tend to lean more towards optimism because without it, what do we have?
Yeah.
Yeah. What about yourself?
Yeah, I there might have been times in my life that I've leaned towards toxic positivity, but not that often. I do try to be more realistic and lean towards optimism, but there are definitely times that I've suffered from great bouts of depression where optimism is very hard to find in those moments, or long stretches, as the case may be. But I think it's because of my history with depression that I try to be lean more in the optimism side of things, uh, and try to find the good that could come of things even during those terrible moments. Yeah, that's what I would say.
Yeah. uh just to piggyback on that, like I think in a lot of instances toxic positivity, if someone does that to themselves, it could be just putting a mask
Mm.
on, and like like names like Robin Williams springs to mind, like
Oh,
someone who's on the outside so full of life, so exuberant, but you have no idea what happens behind closed doors. So I think in some ways toxic positivity can also is very much something that people put onto others, but most people don't actually talk about the things we do to ourselves. Like, we always think, oh, I have to put on this persona, I can't let anyone in. And you
yeah.
just hurt yourself, really.
Yeah, that's yeah. It makes it difficult for you to open up to your actual life challenges and allowing people to help you because you are so toxic with your positivity that you're not even allowing yourself to feel those negative feelings, right?
Yeah.
So it's not human. You need to be able to feel those negative feelings as well. I think it's good to have that kind of balance between positive and negative feelings. It's,
Hmm.
as they are labeled. Um, Feelings should neither be positive or negative, but that's how we frame rhymes. And no, I don't want to have these feelings, but these ones are okay. Uh,
Well, I mean, it's really interesting because I've noticed that a lot of it does tend to stem from people with comedic backgrounds.
mhm.
Because people, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, like a lot of comedians have spoken, or people that we know have said, listen, like, a clown will always laugh to, like, instead of crying, and I think that also goes to show that, when you're feeling low, you lighten the situation, you throw a joke in there. But sometimes people need to face the magic and, at least address the situation, because otherwise, if you're throwing a little jab here and there, it's all well and good, but you just pretty much just putting a layer of paint over something that needs to be fixed.
Yeah, This has made me think, do you feel like, when somebody has died or left your life for whatever reason, okay, let's just stick with death first. If someone has died, do you feel like when someone comes up to that person and is like, oh, it's okay, they're in a better place now, they've gone off to heaven or whatever, would you say that's optimism or toxic positivity?
It's sadly enough, I can actually picture that person saying that in a very specific instance. So for your viewers, my mother passed away very suddenly last year, and about last year, it was last year, and yeah,
Yeah, a
and
year and a half ago now.
yeah, year and a half. Yeah, thank you. Your memory's a lot better than mine, and
It was
yeah,
around the time that I was in Malaysia last
yeah,
year
yeah.
in January.
And
Yeah.
it was during her wake at our house. One of our relatives, I think it was one of her cousins, I believe it was. He came up to both, well, not both, to me, my sister, and my dad separately, and as I said, my mum had just passed. Like her body was still there in the house, and he was like saying, "Oh, she's in a better place. Don't worry about it. Like, listen, it was her time to go. I think she knew, and what have you." And I remember all three of us, we all spoke separately because we weren't there at the same time,
Yeah.
and all of us were like, "Dude, man, what a fucker!" Like, like, and my dad was pissed. My sister was pissed, and I was just like, "Why? Of all the things you could do, why?" And I remember we just went, "Yeah, he's not coming around ever again." So
It's such a common thing for people to say when someone dies, though, especially if they have those kinds of beliefs, right? And I don't know if it is ever helpful, even to the people who also believe in the afterlife in the same way. I don't know if it's actually helpful in those moments.
mhm. Yeah, I mean, all I want is just you to just shake my hand, smile, and and move on. Pay your respects, and
Yeah.
respectfully, it had been a very long few days, so I'm not really in the mood for any kind of pep talk, really. So and even then, I'm just like, oh, she's in a better place, and I'm just like, really, you want to do this right now?
No,
Really?
I would rather, like, positive memories of
Yeah,
that you had, positive experiences that you had with that person when they passed away, rather than, oh no, they're in a better place now. Like, fuck you.
yeah.
It
'Cause
doesn't matter if they are. I would still prefer if they were here.
yeah. And but like for just to spin that around, also on that same day, my mom had one of her childhood friends. They remained friends throughout their lives. She came up to me. She was very, very emotional, and she said, like, oh, like, when she paid her last respects to the body, she was like, it's amazing, even now she still has that smile. And that, I was just like, oh, that was beautiful for me. And so that's the inverse of, like,
Oh yeah.
beautiful positivity. So it didn't
Yeah.
have to be, oh yeah, or like, it'll be okay, don't worry. And I remember, like, just thinking that, like, you've hit two sides of the spectrum there in a very, very short time. So I do understand that people often mean well.
Mhm.
Often, maybe they might mean it as a backhanded compliment. I don't know, but the intention's always well.
Oh, I'm sure it's a meaning well situation. But it makes me wonder, have they ever gone through something similar for them to say something like that? Or I don't know. It's just challenging. On the other hand, it could be worse. At least they're not saying, that person is damned to hell now. Which is the
Yeah.
opposite. So
Well, I don't know. Like, I think it just comes in an innate thing in all of us that we want to comfort each other, or because maybe we get awkward around people who are
yeah.
emotional. So
Yes.
maybe to control the situation, to control that environment, we try to give words of comfort, whatever they may be, whatever that comes to our head.
Right.
And maybe some people, and a lot of times people just don't think; they just go, "Buh." So it's probably best.
Yeah. Whatever they think would help them feel better is not necessarily what would
Yeah,
help other people feel better.
right,
All right,
exactly.
let's go on with our next question.
Next question.
Have you ever been told to just stay
Oh,
positive when struggling?
jeez. Christ. It's like you've put a mirror up to my soul. Um, yeah, yeah. Okay, so yeah. I mean, this happens a lot, and I know that it's a very tricky thing to think of because when anybody's struggling, whether it's physically, emotionally, mentally, staying positive does go a very long way. You know, like for example, a lot of my physiotherapists would always say, listen, if you're not going to give 110% into your workouts, you're going to feel like shit and it's going to hurt in your recovery process. So stay positive and go head on into your recovery. So in some ways, again, going to the optimism part, that makes
Mhm.
sense, right? But like, for example, another thing could be, yeah, I mean, I'm sure this happens to a lot of people where you just, uh, you go into a coffee shop and you see someone with a really, really, like, a bit of a frown, and they go, "Hey, buddy, what's that smile on your face? It's like, bruh, bruh, So it's tricky.
Where's your smile? Put a smile on. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like, or well, I'm sure for women it's a whole different thing. Like, hey, darling, can you give us a smile? That's. I'm not gonna get into that. I mean, that's
Yeah.
another thing entirely. So,
That was where my mind went when you said
yeah,
that.
I thought.
Because I'm a woman.
I just saw you just going.
Not that I have personally had that like experience that often. I probably have, but I don't think I've had it that often because I don't usually have like a resting bitch face kind of look about
Well,
me.
I mean, the fact that you said that often is already too much.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
So
true.
like, hey,
That's true.
baby girl, give me a smile. Like, yeah, you're like, all right, Chad, all right, buddy. So yeah, so I think, but in some ways, staying positive. I mean, yeah, it's very annoying when people do say that, but at the same time, like, again, it's the intention behind it. Obviously, with anything, if you've completely given up hope,
Hmm.
nothing in the world can help you. There's no magical pill. There's no world class physiotherapist. If you're just like, yep, it's over, it's not going to come back. And like a lot of doctors, because just to remind the audience, I come from a medical family, medical professionals. Both my parents were medical doctors, so I grew up around hospitals quite often. And I remember, like, I was in this one particular hospital where we were talking with a lot of kids and older people, geriatrics, who are in their long-term patients, and a lot of the doctors told me that if you keep them separate, they do tend to struggle. But if you keep, let's say, the younger people with the older people, they kind of bring out the best in each other.
Hmm.
Like the younger people get to learn about, get to this insight into wisdom. These older people get to rediscover their youth, and it's a very positive thing. And it actually helped them more so than any kind of therapy. So in some ways, just being positive really does make a difference.
Well, I think that what you're saying there is also more the community aspect. If you're having some aspect of social life, that
Mhm.
helps a lot. Yeah.
Very much so. Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, I mean, some people are built to be super independent, which is fantastic. Good on you. I can't do that. But yeah, I mean, if you're around positive people, you'll become
Mhm.
positive. Like, I mean, even just to go back when I was in.
Not always, but it
Oh,
can rub off.
no. But you know what I mean. Like, I mean, I just go back to my sixth form days when I was in Epsom. Like, they put, for some reason, they put me in the house where everyone was a world class athlete and also super bright. And back then, I was about like 5'7", and I was like this wide, and I had no idea what I was doing. But by the end of my 2 years, you know, kind of spell there, I was a completely different person because I acclimatized to
Mm.
those surroundings. So in some ways, just staying positive and just push through. I mean, it can work. It's just behind the delivery of the message and the circumstance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I think it's okay as long as you also are acknowledging the struggles as well,
Yeah.
rather than kind of like pushing them aside. Like, no, ignore that. It's be positive. Yeah,
For
I
sure.
think for me, I've definitely had like multiple instances of this, but the one that comes to mind most strongly is not it. You know, okay, so my a lot of my major bouts with depression was while I was married. And my ex husband did not know how to handle depression at all. And I don't know that he ever said those words, just say, stay positive, but the messaging was along those lines of, um, you know, first of all, like he took things personally. Like, if you're depressed, why are you depressed? I should be like making you happy. You should be happy because you're with me, and or like things like that. Like, dude. But also
Like, that's very
behave
helpful.
better if you want to be the person that's making me happy. But that's besides the point.
No, no,
It was
that's very valid. That's very valid. Yeah.
um yeah, so that was a big struggle, is like him. It made me feel like I had to hide my depression from him because he just couldn't handle it and didn't want to be around it. And you know, tried to force me into, it's like, oh, you should be happy because of this. So like you should be happy like just being a mother, or you know, just tending to my needs. Like, really? Like, I'm meant to be happy tending to everybody else's needs and not caring about my own. Like, no. Yeah, so that's I guess that's my best example of that. And that was, you know, years of that sort of thing. Um, the strongest time was shortly after or around the time I was moving here to California,
Hmm.
where it was like that was the hardest period of my life. Um, and yeah, it took a lot of work, and it was that finding community aspect locally with people who I could relate to and were fine with me being myself and like being my weird, uh, crazy self,
Hmm.
through improv and stuff, and being appreciated for these weird things. That was the thing that helped me get out of that place where I felt like I was struggling so hard.
Good. Yeah. I think that's massive, and I think it's great that you're out of it. It's but like conversely, like it's I think if it's said in jest, the person, or
Mm.
the intention behind it is meant to be a joke. I think it actually can work. And one thing that does spring to mind, I remember like I was in the University of Hull. I remember this. I must have been 18, 19, give or take. And one of my friends, a guy called Dom, had just broken up with his missus. And you know how guys get when they've drunk a lot. He's like, I remember like there was him, me, and about all of our housemates. I think there was about over a half dozen of us. And he was like, I miss her hair. I miss the way she smiled. I miss the way she did this. I remember all of us just looking at each other, just going, "What is going on?" And I remember, like, I had it. I had up to that point. I just stood up and I went, "Dom, will you stop being so pussy?" And I just walked off. I was so mad, and I felt guilty, obviously. But like, I saw him later that night, and I was like, "Bro, I'm so sorry." And he's like, "No, fuck it, you're right." Yeah.
Well, you know, for some people, but that wasn't you telling him to just stay positive, though. That was just like, I'm pissed off with this shit.
Yeah, like, I mean, it's like, come on, bro. Like, we're on a night out, and you're just like kind of mumbling and just kind of going on like the self pity parade. And I was like, dude, just shut up. So in some ways, yeah. I mean, and to be fair, some people do need uh, not to stay positive, but just to snap themselves out of the struggling thing when they're just like, bro, like it's not that deep. If get out of your bubble a little bit.
There's also like if you have the ability to compartmentalize, so like that seems like there's a time and a place for you to to have those experiences. Don't ignore them and like bottle them up and pretend that they don't exist, because you do need to experience and feel those feelings, but maybe not when you're out in the town with your buddies.
Yeah.
Unless like that's part of the expectation of like, okay, we're gonna go out, we're gonna drink so that we can like cry in each other's arms. You know?
I mean, yeah, sure, but I mean, like, because I remember at that point it had just been going on, and this wasn't just that night; it had been going on for a few days. So at this point, all of us were like, all right, it's too much. It's too much.
Okay, yeah, I can see that. I know I get into those like spiral moments where I'm just constantly thinking of things, but I also am aware there are some people that can handle me talking about that stuff nonstop, and there are most people who can't. So, like, I am very careful to spread out who I share things with and how often I share things with them, because I know not everyone is okay with like hearing it all the time.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, like, that's the thing, because I think the older we get, the we're a lot more mature of our surroundings. We will usually ask people, hey, would you mind if we talked about this?
Yeah.
Or blah 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 blah. But obviously, when you're younger and you just like, bah, and just straight out of the gate, and usually even to people either you don't know or you don't really know very well, and it can be a lot.
Yeah, I feel like there's more words these days, and to be able to speak up about those experiences, and there's more expectation to get consent before you spill all of your sadness over another person. Whereas in the past, it was like, boundaries, what are those? Or maybe that was just me, because I did not learn boundaries until much later in life.
Which is okay. It's okay. I mean, the fact that you know them now.
That's right. Yeah, I'm a little bit more careful with things now. All right. Let's move on to the next question.
Next question.
We did have some viewers, but it seems they've dropped off. So we will continue on with the next question, which is, how can support feel invalidating even if it's well-intentioned? So I think we touched on this a little bit, but let's go into more detail.
Yeah, I think it's like, again, you could have the best intentions in the world, but when you are not giving advice or reacting in a way that's conducive or based in reality, it doesn't really make sense. And yeah, and like, you could have someone physically be there with you, providing comfort, but if they're just going, yeah, you'll be fine, blah blah blah, or playing it down, like, oh, listen, like, it's not that deep, right, or something like that, and then you just like, so it's tricky, but usually that person probably doesn't know the full extent of what it is, or they're uncomfortable.
Yeah. I think what can make someone feel invalidated in those situations is if they're not actually being listened to. The person is just trying to listen to in order to find a solution to make them stop feeling that way. Yeah. Can be well-intentioned because they want the person to be happy, but it's invalidating because they're not, like, the person might just want to express their feelings and to feel like it's okay for them to feel the way that they do without looking for a solution. Because sometimes all someone needs in order to feel better is to vent, right? And then once it's out, then they're fine. But when they have somebody in their ear saying, oh, well, you could do this or you could do that, or like for example, a wife comes home and is complaining about a co-worker to her husband, and the husband is like, oh, you should say this to your co-worker and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, no, I want you to help me feel my feelings. and
That's fair.
listen to me. Yeah.
Hmm. That's fair.
Um, so I think that's a very common example. And I said husband and wife in that situation, but I don't think it's gender specific. I think it can be either, way around that those kinds of experiences can happen.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure.
All right. We're probably going to have a shorter stream this time, but that's all right. Let's go with the next question here. When does encouragement cross the line into dismissal?
Yeah. Again, I think we did briefly talk about this. Obviously, I think in anybody's experience, whenever you speak to someone um, for encouragement, you are hopeful for the best. And sometimes it can be a very, very tricky thing, because despite the fact that two or more people, they could have been friends for a long time, family or relative strangers, you always do want, like, to encourage them, but then we don't really know the full extent of their experience. Obviously, if someone tells me, oh, I've experienced X, Y, and Z, um, I can relate to that. I can be empathic about that, but I can't relive their experiences. Not really, because I wasn't there. It didn't happen to me, So it can be a very, very tricky thing. Like, so I can't remember who it was. I think it was a comedian, I think, who was like saying, "Oh, I've got no idea what it's like to be a woman or a black person. I can, empathize with them, but I can never really understand."
Yeah.
So it's very, very tricky, and yeah, I think regardless of the intention, it's something that a lot of people can slip into.
Mm.
Has that ever happened to you?
Yeah. I'm thinking of like situations where maybe you're asking for help for somebody or you're speaking up about a particular challenge that you've had, and the person doesn't actually offer to help you. That is like, oh, you can do it, you can do it yourself, all by yourself. Like, dude, I'm asking for help right now.
Yeah.
um I feel, yeah, I feel like that's probably something I've encountered when like I've had creative projects that I would have loved to have other people um working uh with me on a project, and I generally wind up feeling like I just have to do everything on my own because nobody actually wants to help me. They're fine with saying, oh yeah, that's great, you go ahead and do it, but I'm like, okay, but what, I I need help. Or you know um or like a situation where it's like, oh, I'm struggling to find work right now, for example, and I feel like um, it would help me so much more if someone was like, oh, hey, I can introduce you to this person who is working in this kind of area or something, and I'm not really receiving any of that kind of thing. So I feel like it's more like, you'll be fine, things will work out, or even like not receiving anything at all is more on that the dismissal side of things.
It can be very, very tricky, isn't it? Because obviously, there's two sides to every coin. I do think that a lot of people do need a lot of um, encouragement, but based on their specific experience, not a generalized thing.
Yeah.
But also at the same time, I think in recent years, correct me if I'm wrong, a lot, I think, due to the power of the internet, for example, we're a lot more connected,
Mm.
and people will be, um, how do I phrase this? People will
Oh,
get outraged over every little thing.
yeah.
You know what I mean? And everything will be every cause has to be taken up and everything has to be taken up to the max, and you're just like, I don't think this is exactly what the original idea was, in the original person's mind. And it's very, very tricky because I think that you can have an idea that's kind of taken and morphed into something different as well. So it's something that I think we're going to see a lot more of, unfortunately.
I was thinking where you're going to go with the online aspect was talking along the lines of like when people are like, "Oh, you could just Google how to do that," like rather than like. There's a big difference between Googling something and to how to do something for yourself versus having that interpersonal connection, which is actually what we're lacking of more of these days, So maybe having that interpersonal connection helping you with something is actually more beneficial in the long term than, Googling how to do something and fixing it for yourself.
It's really interesting. This immediately reminds me of I think he's a YouTuber or is it Instagram? I'm not entirely too sure. There's a channel called Dad How Do I don't know whether you've heard of it, but it's of this gentleman. I don't think he either had a dad or he didn't have a good relationship with his dad. And so what he does is in his channel, he kind of gives advice that dads normally give to their kids. Like for example, Dad, how do I put on a bow tie? How do I tie my shoelaces? How do I do this? And he serves that role, and it's oddly very very comforting, I think, because it's a very very positive thing, but it doesn't go into overdrive as well. So yeah, in some ways that's just the right kind of positivity without being quote unquote too toxic.
Yeah, no, that seems more along the lines of good encouragement that is not leading into dismissal, even if it's not like it's more of a parasocial relationship rather than like an interpersonal with someone that you know. But it's still different than someone being like, oh, you can do it yourself, like just search it on Google.
Yeah. I mean, and to be fair, the Google does have the answers, yeah, but at the same time, it's like I want you to help me. I want you.
This is making me think about so in one of my ex-husband's previous jobs, he wrote a lot about a particular topic, and sometimes he would be like I would want to learn about this topic from him telling me, and he would be like, "Oh, just go and read my post about it." I'm like, I know I could do that, but I want to hear about it from you because I want to build our relationship and have that like in-person connection. Because otherwise, if we don't talk about this stuff, then what are we talking about? Nothing. Like, like tell me about this stuff directly. Yes, I could read the things, but it's a different kind of connection to be able to have it like one-on-one rather than reading it. Because you can have like bounce ideas and ask questions in a way that you're not going to get by reading a post.
At the same time, I mean, conversely with that, whenever you read something, you have the time to articulate yourself that you wouldn't normally get when you're speaking. So in some ways, reading it out could be beneficial. Your thoughts are more clear, they're more laid out, and they're not just like mouth vomit, pretty much. So it could be that.
Yeah, but you can have both also, rather than like the way I felt like I was getting it from him is like, I'm not going to tell you, explain it at all. Like even after you read it, like I'm not going to have a conversation with you about it. Just read the post. Like, can we have? Can we build relationship? Relationship.
A bit of both.
Is it any wonder that we're not married anymore?
sure.
Although I know I rag on him a lot, but I do want to say we had an actually somewhat positive exchange today. One of our agreements. This is a silly thing. I think I've talked about this briefly on the stream before, but part of our divorce settlement agreement is he's allowed to keep a shed in my backyard that he can access, but in order to access it, he has to give me 7 days, like at least a week's notice in advance to go and use and access the shed. He messaged me today asking if he could access it this Sunday, although he's like, I'm assuming the answer is going to be no because it's not 7 days. And then I was like, depends. If you happen to have this anime figure that was mine and I can't find and bring it back to me, then I can make an exception. And he couldn't find it in his place, but he was like, well, it might be in the shed. So I'm like, why not? Access the shed on Sunday and look for it. And if you find it, then you can. So we've actually been making a little bit of headway of being a little bit nicer to each other. I feel like a little bit. There's still some tension here and there, but it's a little bit more positive of late.
I mean, yeah. I mean, the fact is that if you two are just being civil to each other, that's already a step in the right direction. So kudos.
Yeah. I don't know entirely what brought it on. Maybe it's just because of the fact that as challenging as it was for us to have the communication about me potentially selling my house and moving internationally with our son, ultimately it works in his favor if I do, because I still owe him a lot of money for the house, and it would allow me to pay him back earlier than otherwise. Right. So I think that maybe has influenced some of that shift. Who knows? We'll see. We'll see. All right, let's move on to the next question. I think we've fully answered that one now. What are some better ways to support someone in pain? Since we talked about the ways to not do it.
I found, and both for me and I've noticed for others as well, just physically being there. Just show up. That's all you have to do. I'm not saying that you have to be holding their hand quite literally or giving them hugs 24/7, but just be there. Just be there, and just to just to remind them that they literally have someone there with them. They're not alone. And in some ways that's great. And to be fair, with the way that technology is developing now, we don't have to physically be there in person anymore. If you want to, just give homie a video call and just do that. Like for example, one thing I remember doing with another friend of mine was we were both working. I think she was painting something and I was doing some writing, and we just had our phones up. We weren't even talking or looking at each other. We were just doing our own thing. And, and that was something that we found really helpful, because I think at the time, both of us were going through a bit of isolationism. I think it was during COVID. So we were just like, we need people. So, the fact that we could do that, I mean, it's great. So I would say just be there. Just step up and just show up.
Yeah. Presence, as in emotional presence, rather than presents or gifts that you pay money for.
Well, it's a huge thing, because I mean, as cheesy as it sounds, time is precious.
Yeah.
And it's
more valuable. It shows much more care. I mean, a lot of care can go into buying gifts for someone as well, but in terms of attention and like just a desire to be heard and seen and understood. I feel like that, you know, physical presence, whether it's like on a video call or physically, you know, face to face or next to each other in person, I don't know, it makes a huge difference for sure.
Huge. I mean, like, yeah, as we get older, we realize, like, what do we have aside from time? Like, we lose people either for one reason or another. So, in some ways, just to be there with that person and just spend that quality time, that's amazing because, I mean, uh, despite our, like, as cheesy as it sounds, time is the best commodity. Well, I mean, the only true commodity we have, time and health. So in just be there, just show up.
Mm. Yeah. You know, I'm thinking also, I don't know, this kind of goes back to one of the other questions, but another example of when someone is saying or like trying to be, okay, let me go back to how can support feel invalidating even when it's well intentioned? A common one that I have had has been during breakups. And you're like, I've had friends that have been like, oh, that person wasn't good for you anyway. They're a terrible person. You're so much better off without them. Those kinds of comments, well intentioned, but feel invalidating because it's like, that may be true, but I still loved this person. I still am grieving the relationship. I'm still grieving the life that I wanted to have with this person. Yeah, so like that just went through my head when we were talking about the other thing. I'm like, I didn't bring that up.
And if they're saying that now, you're like, why didn't you say that before when we were together?
Well, there's that too. And like,
you're lying to me.
I can understand in some situations. Like, I know I have you know, when I got divorced, and this is different because, you know, I was absolutely done with my ex-husband when we were done. So I didn't mind those kinds of comments so much then because it was my decision to end it. Very different when the other person ends it. It's like, or, you know, something outside of your control. But yeah, my friends for the most part did not like make those kinds of comments when he and I were together because they didn't want to hurt me. And like, that's one of those things that can alienate your friendship. And you don't know if the person is going to be like, okay, well, if you think that about him, then I'm just not going to hang out with you anymore, you know? Whereas if it's like, yeah, okay, I agree with you. But yeah, like I have so much experience with that because my ex-husband totally thought that all my friends were bitching about him to me, and that was not always or very, very rarely actually the case. Very few friends spoke up, and it was only after the divorce that they were like, yeah, he was a jerk.
Yeah.
Like one of my other Malaysian friends, like when we hung out, my first trip back in September 23, most of like our conversation, not most, but a good chunk of our conversation was about him telling me all of the things about why he didn't like him. It was like, I had no idea that you felt all of this way about him. Mm-hmm. So yeah,
I mean, it can be tricky because, like, yeah, like this instantly brings to mind, like, when I was in the UK, like, one of my female friends, she broke up with her boyfriend, and we were talking about it, like, I think a few days later in the pub, and I was like, oh my god, I'm so sorry, are you okay? She's like, yeah, he hated you, by the way. And I was like, what?
Wow.
Yeah, I'm like, I didn't know him at all. And he's like, oh, he didn't like how chummy you were around me. And I'm like, yeah, but
there are so many guys that have that kind of jealousy towards the male friends of their female partner. And Yeah, I could never be with a guy who was jealous of my male friendships because I have too many. Like my ex-husband was a little bit like that with my college bestie, because he was also a dude, and he couldn't stand how close we were. And it's like I had been attracted to him, but he was not interested in me in that way. So it was like there's nothing to be concerned about. And then by the time I met my ex-husband, that friend of mine from university, he was, he must have been engaged, or I remember he got married shortly, a few months before I got married. And it was his marriage, I think, that led to me being like, I guess I'm getting married, or like, being okay with jumping all in, right? Mm. And I remember he also had like a girlfriend at one point who was super jealous and competitive with me, and I'm like, dude, this is so silly. Because so one of the things that he and I liked, but both were interested in, were Care Bears, and so like I think I had maybe bought him some Care Bear things at some point, and then then she started competing and buying him like similar kinds of things. Like, dude, like get your own thing.
For sure.
Oh my god. I still remember like his favorite films. How weird is that? Like his favorite films were Leon the Professional and Harvey, old film with the Harvey as in it's like I think it was from the 60s. And it's about this guy who can see an invisible rabbit. Like his best friend is an invisible rabbit.
I think that's schizophrenia, isn't it?
It's a whole thing. It's a great film, though. I do appreciate the film. So he introduced me to some interesting things.
That's our thing about people in our lives. I mean, we never truly forget them. Every once in a while, I'll just be like, huh. She liked that, didn't she? Or like, yeah,
yeah.
Up in my head.
That was yeah. It's the little things that you remember about a person are what make all the difference to show that you did actually have a meaningful relationship. When those little details, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Right, my dad's left us a comment because he is watching.
Hi,
he just had to say, I am here, but internet connection is poor today. No worries, Dad.
Well, thanks for showing up, Frank.
Feel free to leave comments or message me later after the stream if you like. Probably only going to have a short one anyway. I think how many... one question left. Unless you want to go back to the what are better ways to support someone in pain? Because I went back to a previous question. Okay. Did we finish that?
Yeah. I don't know whether this is support per se or masking it. I know that obviously distraction goes a very, very long way.
Oh, man.
Yeah. So in some ways, if someone's feeling pain, and to be fair, I've done this, we go, we overtly try to make things better, right? So we'll be like, oh, well, we're going to have a fantastic weekend. We're going to do this and we're going to do that. And then sometimes that can actually be okay, because like I know that, everyone talks about masking pain, but at the same time, if you leave people to wallow in their pain, that's not going to necessarily make things better either. Obviously, they could address it, but that could potentially make them spiral even worse. Yeah. Just to like again, we mentioned spending time with the person, just be there with them. So so if someone goes, oh, I don't want to go out, I don't want to do this. If you want to be that quote unquote toxic friend a little bit, just go like, oh yeah, listen, like there's this new movie out in the cinema, let's go. Right? And they'll be, oh, I don't want. I'm like, well, you're gonna go home, you're gonna stay home and watch Netflix anyway. All right, might as well have popcorn with me. Come on. Then I suppose in some ways that is good. And to be fair, when people are out and about, I'm sure a lot of people experienced this during COVID. The social isolationism, it's 99.9% is not good for you.
Mm.
I mean, there is that very rare sect of people who almost thrive, or not, or yeah, who's like, oh, they don't even miss a beat, and they're like, oh, I'm loving my new life, and fair play. But obviously, people are we're community animals, aren't we? We're a family pack.
Oh
So
yeah.
yeah,
I
so
I enjoy my alone time, but I don't know that I would be able to live with it like non-stop uh without having any social interaction at all
mhm.
whatsoever.
Yeah,
Um
it can be very
yeah.
very tricky. Like I remember when I was in Hull one Christmas. All my roommates had gone back, all my friends had gone back, and what have you. And I remember it was during a very very heavy snowstorm that lasted a few days actually, so it was pretty bad. And I hadn't seen anyone in a very very long time. And obviously, this is the pre social media kind of craze. So like I didn't speak to anyone, So I remember like being out and about, and then we actually saw some people walking past. I was like, people, So, like, so that could be a big thing too.
Yeah. I have, Mike mentioned last week, he had fireworks in the background. I'm having that right now. I don't know if you can hear them.
Ah,
But because tomorrow is actually finally Independence Day, July 4th, here in the United
welcome
States.
to your
So
Independence Day.
illegal fireworks in the streets. It'll be even bigger tomorrow night. I actually last 4th of July I went to my friend Sundar's place. He popped in for the chat last week. I went to, because he lives on like the 10th floor of an apartment complex, and so we could look out on from his balcony to see all of the illegal fireworks going off in the streets of Oakland. So I have plans to do that with him again tomorrow. Although hopefully we'll have time to watch an Australian movie that I want to introduce him to
Which is?
first. Have you heard of The Castle?
I have not. What is The Castle about?
Oh man, it's one of like the most classic Australian films outside of the ones that everyone knows, like Mad Max and Crocodile Dundee and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
What was that? And yeah, but it's about a guy, like a guy who, his home is his castle, right? And I think the government wants to buy his property so they can tear it down and like expand the airport or something like this. It's been many, many years since I've seen it, so I could be way off. This is from my memory. And he's like refuses to sell, and like, so it's like this kind of legal battle and everything. So yeah, I'm excited to share it and rewatch it again and experience it with somebody new. Sundar loves cricket, and so like he tries to connect with some of the Australian things because cricket is also popular in Australia. But I'm like, I'm not a cricket person, but I would be happy to introduce you to other Australian things.
Yeah, and to be fair, like just going on, one of the best ways of supporting someone in pain, just put on a film, enjoy.
Oh yeah, no, that's been one of the things that I've been doing more of this year, especially because being unemployed for as long as I am, I clearly have some experience with depression and anxiety right now. It's being abated by watching movies and anime and spending time with friends because it's so terrible, like looking for work and stuff. And depressing. Like it's it's not a good time to be looking for work. It's so bad. But given that the House and Senate just passed the big beautiful bill, I am looking forward to leaving the country. Yeah. So anyway, yes, movies are, you're putting a movie on, it's a good distraction, and doing it with another person it's that shared experience. You get to enjoy something together and get to experience those emotions. So you still get to, especially if it's an emotional film, whether it's like, you know, a comedy or like a tragedy, action film, so it's excitement, horror, so, you know, scary. You get to experience emotions in a relatively safe way.
Yeah.
I feel like movies have been, I don't know if you've seen, I've been posting like mini reviews of some of the movies that I've been watching on Instagram. And
yeah, I have actually. Yeah.
So I've been like, in these mini reviews, I've been kind of it's been helping me experience things in my life and reflecting on things in my life as I'm watching the films as well. So yeah, it's a a way into my own life, like a mirror sometimes, to be able to have that experience. Another
yeah, I mean, it's great. Yeah, like if you're watching a horror film, I remember like when it's so stupid. Like when I was with like some of my friends when we were in Teesside, we would do something where it's just so stupid. Like we all had these heart rate monitors attached to us, and if we were watching a horror film, and like to prove how alpha Chad we all were, like how many, there was quite a few of us. So like 7 in one room, and we were watching I can't remember what film it was, a vampire film. It was like a really really shitty vampire film, and we all had these things on because 2 of the guys worked with physical education, so they had those. And like whenever like stuff like it would get high, like it would start beeping, we'd be like, we just start drinking and keep on doing it, and then it just got worse and worse and worse, and it was so dumb, but just it was fun. So there you go.
That's reminding me about how I used to enjoy watching my ex live stream playing horror games. I don't play horror video games myself, but I enjoyed watching him live stream playing them because I found it hilarious when he would have jump scares and react to them. That was so funny. The things that we find entertaining, right? Not that he knew that I was watching them at all any of the times that
which made it even better.
Yeah. So I'm just enjoying it
of
my own quiet self. Yeah, I was also going to say another way that I think is a better way to support someone in pain that I think is great for a lot of different situations. Like if you're grieving somebody who's just died, if you've just had a baby, if you're suffering from a bout of major depression, that sort of thing. Like you can't get out of bed, you can't go and do anything yourself, you can't even get out to have a shower because you're so bad. Those kinds of situations, great way to support people in any of those circumstances is bring them food. Whether you make it yourself, whether you go and get it from takeout or whatever, bringing them food is a great example of things. Like when I had, newborn babies, that was one of the biggest supports that I had was when other people were around to make food for me, and it was just so much easier. I'm like, oh, thank you, because it's like such a stressful time, right?
I mean, I'm sure that could be quite overwhelming at the same time. You have, for lunch, you have Chinese. For dinner, here's pizza. You're like, oh.
It depends on how much support that you have. Oh my God, I think one of my short films was along these lines as well. What was it? It's on my channel somewhere. I can't remember what it was called, but it was a film that I made as part of a film class that I was doing, and I wrote the script myself, and my first baby, I think, was like crying in the background. It was just like this new mother who was struggling to take care of her infant, and then like her best friend was complaining because they weren't like having the same kind of friendship anymore. It's like, dude, you're being a bit selfish right now because this mom is like. Anyway, I tried to do it, balance it well with like both perspectives of like understanding, and I don't know, the friend I think might have even come across as a little bit more sympathetic than the new mother. But anyway,
it's very tricky as well, because sometimes whenever like people are in pain, I don't know about you, but sometimes maybe a little distance can help. Because I'm sure this has happened to you as well. Whenever, let's say, you're down the dumps and your laundry is open for everyone to see, people will come up and they'll be like, "Listen, so this is what I do to get through this," and you're like, "Yeah, like, bro, I'm good." Like, and like I said, like when people like I've had who will literally just be there, don't have to address it, just be there. That's great, but sometimes as well, sometimes people need a bit of space. Sometimes people need the time and the space to grieve. You know?
Grieve, or even just process their feelings, because they don't know how to express their feelings. They want to have the chance to process them internally before they feel safe to discuss it with other people as well. Everyone's different in how they manage those things. That's a great example.
It can be really tricky,
it's challenging. I think if you're more the kind of person who feels like they need to discuss things in order to overcome things, to know how to support the person who needs space. So you need to have that kind of open communication. It's like, look, I know that you want to support me and help me right now, but the best way that you can help and support me right now is to give me space. Like, just ask for it, rather than like not respond to messages and like
don't explode on it, because like because that's what happened. Like the one incident that springs to mind was my aunt very unexpectedly passed away. This is a few years ago. And we were at their house paying our respects, and obviously her son was very, very young, and he was taking it very, very badly. And I remember I reached in to give him a hug, and he was like, "Why is everybody trying to hug me?" And his sister chastised him. And at first I was really taken aback by it. But I remember when I was driving home, I was probably the 10, not even the 10th, probably the 100th person that day to get in this guy's personal space and hug him, like unwanted. I remember thinking he wasn't him not being able to articulate or his feelings. It was me encroaching his space.
Yes. Yeah.
So in some ways, even for me, you have to learn, you have to gauge when,
or just be like, can I give you a hug? Would you like a hug? Before going in for the hug, or like, slowly, so you can see if they're like, or if like, great. There's a big difference between, yes, I'm going to embrace this, and like,
So I mean, you definitely have to read the room, read the person. So and to be fair, if like sometimes if like I said, just by being there is great, but sometimes if they just want time to themselves, respect their time. That's all we have.
Exactly. I think we came up with some great examples of ways to support people in pain.
Like as you mentioned, food goes a very, very, very long way.
We found the solutions.
If you got to get through my heart, go through my belly. There you go.
All right, my dad has left us some comments, so I'll bring those up. So he says, Harvey mentioned is a favorite movie. So my dad loves that movie, Harvey. I don't think he was the one who, I don't think I have really I maybe have just talked to my dad about Harvey since I heard about it from my university bestie, but he was not the person who introduced me to it. He said, Ryan Gosling mentioned it as part of his influence for his role in the movie I recently mentioned. My dad messaged me about Lars and the Real Girl.
Yeah, that's it.
So he was like, yeah, you should check this out. It might be interesting for your stream. And I've already seen it. But it's been a while, but yes, there was a period of my life where I just watched like as many Ryan Gosling films as I could because I just adored the crap out of him. Like I saw him as like a younger version of Edward Norton, who I think is like one of the best actors of all time. He's just so talented.
Yeah.
And Ryan Gosling to me was like following in his footsteps. All right. Okay, so my dad said title slipping me at the moment. Lars and the Real Girl, about Shy Guy's relationship with
An adult
an
doll.
adult doll. Yeah, do that. That's right. Okay, then my dad adds, some of my best connections as a teacher was watching movies with a class and breaking it down with questions talking about life skills being taught. It was a way of teaching 400 plus 14 to 15-year-olds. I don't think I was ever like, okay, I'm pretty sure, I think my dad might have been the art teacher at a school that I went to briefly. I don't think I was, and he was like also a substitute teacher sometimes. But I don't think he ever did this in any classes that I was in with him. But I've definitely done this with my kids. Watched things with them and then discussed the themes, the messages, the lessons that we should be learning and taking away from this, and what to do and what not to do in these similar situations and that sort of thing. There are so many lessons in movies, whether or not they are showing you good behavior or not. Because sometimes you can, like, if you're watching it on your own, especially if you're younger, you might take away the wrong message from it if you don't have an adult kind of in your ear saying that's not good behavior. Like how I've talked about how I can't kind of feel like romantic comedies fucked me up in terms of expectations for relationships, because just the messaging of what the drama of romantic comedies and things, like that seems to be normal of what a relationship is supposed to be. It's actually like an example of unhealthy and toxic. If you have no experience with relationships, then you don't necessarily know that going into it. If you don't have people saying, telling you and talking to you about it on the side.
Yeah, I mean, I remember the very first time I watched what was that film, My Girl, and at the end of it, like spoiler, like it's a very very something happens in the film that's very very tragic, and
with bees.
And I did, and it took me by surprise, and I wasn't expecting it, and there was a scene where she comes up to him and she, he needs his glasses, he can't see without his glasses, and that taught me a lot about friendship. And in some ways, films can teach you, okay, you watch Arnold Schwarzenegger and you be a manly man, and other films where like you learn how to be a human being. So so movies are in some ways great educators.
Yeah, I just rewatched Titanic for the first time in over 20 years this past weekend. This was one of my Instagram posts with the mini review that I did. And one of the interesting reflections for me was like, I'm pretty sure I'd not had any kind of serious relationship the last time I'd seen Titanic. I don't remember exactly when was the last time I watched it. It came out in 1997. So I was like 14 at the time. I had no relationship at that point. If I had seen it after my first boyfriend that lasted like 6 weeks or something, it wasn't like a serious one. So there's no like comparison, really. So anyway, the last time I'd seen it was before I even met my ex-husband. And oops.
Hello.
That's so weird. Sorry about that.
No, you're fine.
Anyway, and so I didn't have like any concept of, you know, relationships at the time, but one of the things that was interesting for me to reflect on it was like how like comparing Rose's relationships with the guy that she was engaged to, her fiance Cal, and then the guy that she fell in love with on the Titanic, Leonardo DiCaprio's character Jack, and seeing like, oh my god, they fell in love so quickly, but also just the seeing that the lesson is like she fell in love with him because he helped her be herself. Like he kind of gave her permission to be herself, whereas Cal was a lot more controlling. It's like, don't be argumentative like this and don't have opinions and blah blah blah. And so I think, and we're wondering now, like, was the messaging in that film like the undercurrent of why I learned to be did that messaging come across in my own love life of realizing that, you know, and this is the reason that I don't care if somebody is poor, as long as they treat me right, you know, for a relationship. But I don't know like how much of that is the case. And yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so that's that's kind of where I was going with that. Yeah. My dad has another comment. You can't see this in the posts on Restream, but in the YouTube chat, my dad has a crown and a #1, so number 1, like highlighted in his name on YouTube. So I think that means that he's my number 1 fan. This is interesting. By
the way, I'm just going to unlock my door. I think we have a technician wanting to do something in the room. So if you do see someone, just bear with me.
No worries. You can still hear me though, right?
Yeah.
Okay. No worries. All right. So my dad is replying to my thing about him being an art teacher when I was at school. He said that was my role at Warnbro. No, Dad, that was my brother went to that school with you. I was talking about Charthouse Primary School. Pretty sure that you were there then with special funding. It was a team effort with the senior staff who took students out for counseling while I taught life skills.
That's super
cool.
I
think that was different. I think my brother went to that school when my dad was there. All right, we have one more question, I believe.
Ooh. Let's hear it.
Can you recall a time someone offered real, helpful support?
Yes. We're going back to my mom passing, because that's definitely something that rings true. My best friend had, I think he had just come from he's a sommelier. He also works as a sommelier. So he came back from a wine showing, and he was dressed in a 3-piece suit. And this was during my mom's wake. And I remember I just needed to get out of the house at that point. And he just told me, like, listen, grab Vikram, our dog. And he's like, all right, give me the leash. Let's go. I went, where are we going? He's like, let's just go. And mind you, this is in Malaysia. So this is like, this isn't like in the evening. This is like 2-3 o'clock in the afternoon. Mm. And he's wearing a 3-piece suit. And he's like, yeah, let's just go walk around the, not just around my compound, but around the block outside. And mind you, I was wearing something similar. I was wearing like a shirt, a tie, and trousers, and I was boiling. And he was fine, and he was just like like. But the fact was he took Vikram's reins and just kind of went, all right, yeah. So let's just talk and get out of the house, and that meant so much. Just the fact that he invited me to take me out of that for a little bit, that meant a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it wasn't even that long. It was only like maybe 20 minutes, if that. So yeah,
As hot as it was in a three-piece suit.
for
That's
sure.
amazing.
Yeah.
The thing that comes to mind for me with this question would be my Malaysian ex, who I refer to as Lee, not his real name, but that's the name that I use for him on in my memoir, so I use it in my streams. When during the period where my ex-husband had already moved here to California, but I stayed in Malaysia with my kids to like finalize everything before moving over here to be with him. Lee was the one who he looked after the kids for me sometimes so that I could go and do other things. For even like when I wanted to go out and perform, he babysat for me. Or like I think there was a time that I went to see a show, and he babysat for me. He like drove me places to get things sorted out when I needed to have that done. He was the person who drove us to the airport at the end, on our way to California. He picked us up from the airport when we flew from Australia back to Malaysia. So my whole family, like my ex-husband and my kids and I, all flew to Australia before the move because for some reason they had to get their US visas sorted out in Australia rather than Malaysia. So we had to go to Australia for that. And then so that meant that at that point was when my ex-husband came here, and I went back to Malaysia with my kids. And so he was the one who picked us up from the airport. And he just supported us through so much. And I don't know that I really understood at the time how much acts of service, because that's what that was as the love language. I don't know that I really understood at the time how much that meant to me in that love language term until like much later, where I've just been reflecting back on how much he did support me in that particular way, the acts of service kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
So, because that is not one of my primary love languages. Like my love languages are quality time and words of affirmation. Like those are the ones I appreciate the most generally. But that sort of thing, when it's done, it's like when I like genuinely need that kind of support. So appreciative of that sort of thing as well. So
It's all about the little
whatever
things.
needs to be done. Yeah, the little things for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
My dad has a few more comments for us here. All right. This one, which I can't see right now. My dad says, thanks for clarity about making in purple that turned up today. What's that about?
Okay, Frank.
I don't know what that means. Yes, I know your brother was in some of those classes. Yeah, okay. And he says, my purpose of sharing that here was more about what you're doing here on this program, the Lars and the Real Girl, I think. And then he also says, movie references can be used to explain ways of dealing with our problems.
Very true.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like there's a lot of like we can connect with them when we can relate to the experiences that we're seeing as well. It's like, oh, I'm not alone. I'm clearly not alone because this character is experiencing this thing that I've experienced in this film, and which means somebody must have thought that this is a common thing to be able to write about it, to put it on screen, right?
Right.
Yeah, it's definitely a good way, I think, to explain ways of dealing with our problems.
Yeah, I mean, and to be fair, like if whenever we watch stuff in films, like it's really interesting because it doesn't have to be about maybe watching our problems and represented in film. It can be some way of us dealing with it. Like like
Yeah.
a lot of people like when I was training to be a film writer, a lot of my teachers would say, okay, when people go to the cinema, they don't want to be reminded about their problems, their issues. They want to go have fun. For 2 hours, they can switch their brain off, even if it's mindless, like brain rot action or a stupid comedy. That's what they want to do. They want to escape and everything. So, yeah, I mean, it's movies are great.
Sometimes they're an escape. Sometimes they're a good way to deal with our own problems and see our lives reflected back at us. It depends on what you're in the mood for.
Very true.
Um, why do people watch horror movies? That's to escape our lives and to be, thank goodness I am not going through that. I want to be scared.
For sure.
I was lamenting that recently. So I mentioned that I have a couple of friends I've been watching movies with to kind of help me cope. I don't have any local friends who will watch horror movies with me. So I put a question out on Facebook a couple of days ago. It's like, do I have any local horror movie fans who might be interested in watching some with me? Because I just realized like this year that I watch more horror movies than I thought that I did, and I actually enjoy them quite a bit.
Good.
But yeah, I watch them on my own, and I feel like horror movies it's different to be able to experience it with somebody else.
Yeah, but I mean, horror is an entirely different thing altogether. I mean, obviously, it's meant to activate that primal part of your brain and everything, but at the same time, it's meant to make us feel alive. Like this isn't happening to we're living vicariously through this people through the situation, but we like to think like yeah, like in action movies, oh yeah, we could blow that base up, or romantic movies, oh yeah, we'd form the relationship, but in horror movies, you're like, realistically, 99 times out of 100, you're dying in Act One. Like,
oh yeah. It's like,
like
thank God I'm not in this movie.
everyone always jokes like, oh, if you were in the movie with Jason or something, like in a camp, like when would you die? I'm like, I'll be the first one, dude. There's no way that I'm lasting that long.
I just think like I've just realized that a good chunk of the movies that I've gone to see in the theater this year have been horror movies. I feel like I just saw Megan 2.0 this week. Yeah, I watched Final Destination Bloodlines. I watched Sinners. I think might have been, I don't know, there's more coming out later this year. Oh no, I also saw 28 Years Later. That's a lot of horror movies that I've been to see at the theater this year. Like, that's interesting. Now, granted, like, three of them are sequels to other horror movies that I've already seen, so it's, I guess, different when that many sequels are coming out. Like the new I Know What You Did Last Summer is coming out, I think, later this month as well. And yeah, no, I'm excited for it. How close is it to the release date? I'm pretty sure it's this month that it comes out.
I mean, it's the first time I'm hearing about it, so I don't know.
Really? You hadn't heard? Okay. Well, maybe you're not getting trailers for it in Malaysia. Yeah. All right. My dad clarified the purple comment. He said the #1 fan label is purple, so that's what he was referring to. Because he didn't understand what was going on with him getting the picture of it as well.
I got you. Okay.
All right. I think my dad has another comment right here that just popped in. I was about to end things, but okay. He says it is a way of confronting issues safely by projecting self into others without confronting self in a hard way. Our unconscious is involved in our choices. Yeah, I think it's easier sometimes to deal with things by projecting it onto other people rather than, internalizing our problems and looking within. So if we can project ourselves into the characters on the screen, we can deal with our issues with a bit of distance.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
Your dad's like super profound with all the stuff that he always chimes in. I think that's great. That's fantastic.
you can probably see how I grew up to be the person that I am. with this kind of father that I had.
Yeah, man. Frank's got some really, really deep stuff.
Yeah, definitely. He was also like, he was more of a movie person than my mum was, although there are definitely things that I watched with my mum that is like my connecting kind of thing. I'm a little bit on a kick at the moment about wanting to revisit things that I watched with my mum. I want to do like a marathon of true stories about the space race movies. And I'm going to start with, I think, I don't know what order I'll do it with, but there's an Australian film called The Dish that I haven't seen in years, which is like Australia's involvement in getting the Apollo 11 astronauts on the moon.
Nice.
And then I also want to watch Hidden Figures, which were about the computer scientist ladies who were involved with all the mathematics that went into that.
Right. That sounds.
Yeah. And I also have Apollo 13 on DVD that I haven't seen in many years. And that was another one that, like my mum was a huge space and NASA fan, so like I connect those kinds of things. She was not alive when Hidden Figures came out, but I think that she would have absolutely loved that film. So yeah, I want to do a marathon of those movies so that I can like do a brief review. I'm enjoying doing these like movie review posts on Instagram, like very brief things, but they're getting some attention on from one or two people who keep revisiting them multiple times. But clearly that means that there is some interest in me to continue doing those things.
Yeah. We should do like our next episode maybe or something down the line. We should talk about like space movies. I think that'd be a lot.
Yes, yeah, we can do a space movie after I watch those ones. Also, I want to watch, if we're going to do space movies, I think I also want to watch Contact again. Because I was just talking about the real life ones, but Contact is another good one. Maybe Armageddon as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, the ones that I own copies of, I have all of those films. In my collection. So yes, we will do a space
episode
topic for not of a Real Talk with the Vulnerable Angel. That'll be for our people who discuss media topics live stream that we do on occasion.
Real support.
Yeah. Okay, my dad has another couple more comments here before we close out. He says prayer is also an important support. For some people it is, other people not so much, but depending on how religious you are, it's definitely support for some. My dad also says good choices to review regarding your mom. Yes. I have so many good connections with my mom. There are a lot of things that I watched with her. Sometimes like she would rent something out but she wouldn't remember if she'd seen it before, and I'd be like, Mum, we watched that already. And then she's like, I don't remember it. And then she'd borrow it and then we'd watch it again, and she's like, oh yeah, you're right.
Yeah. By the end, right?
It's fine. I don't remember what films that was, but that happened a few times. back in the video store days. And my dad also says Contact
VHS
is
days,
a good choice. Yeah.
Yeah, I think like it's really funny because now we can see that whenever, let's say, you're watching Netflix, you have that little bar, right? Or usually that's something that says, oh, you've already previously watched this. For like for your viewers, like just for them to know, like part of my medical condition involves short-term memory loss, which is really, really prevalent when I first fell ill the first couple of years, where I would go on Netflix and it says you've already watched this. I have no idea where I watched this, but like my doctors actually said that's great because you're practicing your muscle memory. So yeah, I remember watching something and my sister or my mom or my dad would walk past and they go, "Didn't you watch that last week?" And I went,
well, the upside is you get to enjoy it as if it is the first time, right?
Exactly.
Like, so you're not like.
So it's I'm enjoying it, so it doesn't matter.
I enjoy so when it's been like decades since I've seen a film, and you don't really remember very much. It's like it's almost like watching it again for the first time. And that's, I don't know, I feel like that's what I'm kind of on the kick for doing right now, is like revisiting movies that I enjoyed when I was a teenager or a kid that I haven't seen in years. Another Australian film that I'm wanting to, I've already mentioned The Castle and the Dish. Another Australian film that I haven't seen in years, but I loved as a kid and I want to show to my son, is this movie called Napoleon, which is not about Napoleon Bonaparte. It's about this golden retriever puppy called Napoleon. I know, and it's adorable, but it gets lost in the Australian bush and it has to find its way home, and it's adorable. Yeah, it's so, and I haven't seen it in many years, so I'm looking forward to showing that to my son. I think he will love it. And this is another thing, kind of off topic now, but have you noticed how, I think it was back in the 90s, there were a lot of films about animals and pets that, they could talk, and like
Homeward Bound,
Homeward Bound, and Milo and Otis, and Babe, another Australian film, which I also need to rewatch. I don't feel like there are any kids' movies made today that are like that.
No. To be fair, CGI and special effects has gone such a long way. And I don't know. I think that in itself is, like, movies like that are trickier because a lot of film companies, they think by taking an original IP, it's too big of a risk. That's why you'll see so many films that are based on original IPs or spin-offs or cinematic universes, because they're guaranteed money. So in some ways, it's harder unless you're willing to take a risk, and unless you're a multi-million-dollar company, it's going to be hard to come by.
I wonder if there are more regulations around using animals in films nowadays compared to what there was back then as well, though. Like, that could be a thing.
Maybe. Yeah. That's a good point.
My dad has this comment, 100 First Dates, but I think he means 50 First Dates, which is a film that I think you've brought that up, that you like that one, right?
Yeah.
So I think that was his reflection on your, I can't remember this film.
There you go. It felt twice as long. Yeah.
He says, senior dating movies are mine, First Wives, One Fine Day, lots of others.
That's cool.
All right, I think we're going to end it there since we've gotten off topic now and we have no more questions left. Thank you so much for watching, Dad. Anyone else who might be watching after the fact, thank you so much for joining us. Feel free to drop us some comments or questions in the chat if you have suggestions for topics you would like to have us discuss on this show. Real Talk with the Vulnerable Angel and Friends. Always happy to have suggestions. And we generally do this every week. Next week, I am not available to do Thursday like usual, so we'll just be a watch out on the channel, subscribe and hit the notification bell if you want to know for sure when we're going live, and that's the way to find out. So